Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. Midtown gunman Shane Tamura leaves note blaming brain trauma for deadly rampage. Fragile ceasefire holds despite fresh accusations. Cross-border fire. Internet exposed with new Trump always chickens out meme mocking trade policy stance. Netanyahu denies famine in Gaza as aid groups report rising malnutrition and deaths. Ghislaine Maxwell petitioned U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Epstein-related trafficking conviction. All here for you guys this morning. And we're going to do a comprehensive breakdown on CTE because I think this is something that will affect a lot of people who deal in contact sports of any sort. And this may mature as one is playing, in this case, football, the many years, Pop Warner, high school, college, and beyond. So the Chinese government has rolled out a nationwide child care subsidy of $1,500 per year per child under the age of 3 as it confronts a very demographic crisis with birth numbers. Having since 2016, they've been seeing a very sharp decline in birth rates, and this has been spiraling a lot of the economic pressures that they have in China. And some reporters describe it as ineffectively $1,500 over 3 years. So essentially, for the first 3 years of the child's birth, the Chinese couple or the Chinese person having the child will receive 500 USD. But critics are stating it's nowhere near enough to offset the true cost of child rearing. Now, when we look at this particular story here, folks, we can actually relate as American citizens because America has a very sharp declining birth rate as well. And the Chinese government are getting their citizens incentives to have children. Now, at one point in time, 10, 20 years ago, China actually put a ban on having no more than 2 children. Now, when I look at other countries that we deem overpopulated, like India, I haven't heard anything like that because I heard India is very overpopulated. That's why you would see Indian nationals in all other sorts of countries. You would see Indian nationals in Africa. You would see them in China. You would see them in Trinidad. You would see them in America. You would see them in the UAE. You would also see them in Europe. So again, I don't believe India has that problem, but America and China are facing the same problem. But China is trying to give financial incentives for people to have more children. Now, when it comes to $1,500 USD in China, that number is far more significant than it will be in the US. And here's a currency breakdown for you guys. So $1,500 of USD is 10,766 Chinese yuan. When we look at this, or yen. No, I'm sorry, that's Japanese. This is yuan, I believe. But nonetheless, as we look at a comparison between Beijing, China, I just picked 2 cities, and Austin, Texas. I just want to show you guys very quickly here how that number is significant for China and not for America. I think we already know that. Cost of living in Austin, Texas is almost 70% higher than it is in Beijing. The cost of including rent in Austin is 87% higher, and I'm rounding up, than in Beijing. Rent prices in Austin 123% higher than in Beijing. Also, restaurant prices are 186% higher in Texas and Austin than in Beijing. Grocery prices, roughly 80% higher in Austin than in Beijing. And the only difference here is that you have more local purchasing power in Austin, 75% higher than in Beijing. And you kind of do a breakdown here to kind of give the cost related. This is a great site I've been using for years called Nubio. It kind of does the cost of living for each state. And this is for a lot of people who want to move state to state or internationally. This site right here is pretty good. It may be other good sites, but this one's pretty good. And it kind of gives you a breakdown that a 12-ounce small water bottle, and I'm right here, folks. A 12-ounce small bottle of water in Beijing is 31 cents compared to America's $2.13. And what you can do with this information that you get when you are correlating the comparison of living costs from country to country is how far your money would take you in that particular country. So in China, milk seems to be very expensive. You have $6.40 USD versus $4 in Austin, Texas. Eggs in China, $1.73 compared to America, $4.42. And again, I've seen eggs all the way up to $10 per dozen. So again, this is a very vast difference. Of $1,500 will go further in China than it ever would in any state, city in America. I mean, unless you're out there in the boonies, you live in certain states, maybe Iowa, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota. But again, that's still not going to take you far, $1,500 in America to have a child. We're talking about thousands. I mean, at one point in time, they stated that it will cost an American couple almost $500,000 to $1 million to raise a child. And that's just the basic necessity: clothes, food, water, shelter, school supplies, etc. So again, that number for us will have to be significantly higher. And again, I'm just throwing out a very arbitrary number here, $25,000. That will at least get the ball rolling. I know some of you like that won't even pay for the Pampers for 3 years. That won't pay for the milk for 3 years. That won't pay for the stroller and the car seat. I get it. I'm just saying as an initial incentive to have children. Because again, some people will take that $25,000 once that baby is confirmed and being born, and that money is deposited. Some people can multiply it in many different ways. That money could stretch, but I will at least have to say $25,000 to $30,000 for an American citizen to have a child. Now, what would that do to the national deficit? What would that do? Or what about reductions in taxes? What about an actual child tax credit? What about if they put a child deduction, meaning that you get large percentage of deduction from your taxes, as well as a tax credit for having children, meaning you will receive a much larger return on your tax return. So there's many ways that they can do it. But again, this is just an idea that I saw China is dealing with the same problem that could possibly work for America. And my number is $25,000. Your number may be $50,000. Again, it's very subjective how we can go about this, but nonetheless, we need to come up with viable solutions so we don't have to depend on everyone else to do the work that America's been doing for a very long time. So I definitely wanted to touch on that because I believe that is very important. Now, there has been an unfortunate, tragic event in Midtown Manhattan. 27-year-old Shane Devon Tamara killed 4 people, including an off-duty NYPD officer. Then he took his own life. In a multi-page suicide note, he blamed American football and the NFL for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, excuse me if I butchered that name, but also known as CTE. He demanded post-mortem brain study. So he already knew what he was going to do. He already knew that he was going to take his life in some capacity, and are now giving scientists, researchers, and doctors the approval of doing post-mortem brain studies. And he's referencing former player Terry Long. He openly accused the NFL of silencing critics despite never playing pro football. Investigators confirmed Tamara had played high school football. And here's the thing about CTE. This was really brought to light back in 2002 by Dr. Bennet Amalu, I believe. He's an American resident at this point in time, but he is from the country of Africa, no less. But he is the first person who identified CTE in Mike Webster in 2002 and inspired the film Concussion that's played by the lead actor Will Smith. He also highlighted how repeated head trauma alters brain tissue, raising uncomfortable questions about the lead's accountability. Now, this is a very stark story that we really have to seek our teeth into. And again, I'm just going to allow some of this to play for context, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you guys to definitely listen in.
A new clue overnight may help police establish a motive.
We have live team coverage for you. Jaisha Patel and Kimberly Richardson are standing by with more on what we know about the gunman and the victims. But for now, let's begin with Phil Tate, live in Midtown with the latest on this investigation. Phil.
Yeah, Pedro, Shirley, good morning. We've been outside of this Midtown office building for over the past hour. Just to paint the picture for you all, there are still barricades outside of this building. Investigators have been inside of the lobby taking several photos, and we've seen the crime scene unit parked outside. They have been going in and out.
Now, I know this story is going to be ripped to shreds only because this young man did not play in the NFL, but he's basically stating that he has some form of CTE that derived from high school football. Now, when you think about gentlemen, people who played football for a very long time, I played up until college. So I played Pop Warner. I played in private leagues. I played in middle school. I played in high school, and I also played in college. Now, I was just blessed enough not to have any lifelong injuries from football like CTE, where on the outside, someone seems very normal, but there's a lot of things going on mentally. And again, we're going to break this down even more so. Now, here's the doctor that I was referencing earlier for you guys, Dr. Bennett Amalu. And I just want to play just a little bit of this for you guys, okay, of what he had to say.
But the American Medical Association has risen to the occasion to rejuvenate my faith in all of us, my faith in America. I came to America in 1994 in search of myself, to be myself. I recognize that we all are members of one another. And through my science, I discovered.
All right, just want to give you guys a quick teaser, and here's the movie that I'm referencing. If you want to know more about CTE and how this came about, Dr. Bennett Amalu's story and how this was discovered, and all of the red tape and all of the bureaucratic fallback from this, because the NFL did not want this to come out. They even had doctors that'll go against Dr. Bennett Amalu. They had everybody trying to go against what this doctor was stating, even though he had scientific evidence of the dramatic hitting. And that's why you see a lot of advancements in football. Have you guys ever noticed, especially in practice, NFL players are wearing this kind of protective cushions on top of their helmets? That is to decrease the amount of contact and impact that it has on the brain. No one wants shaking of the brain. Again, that derives on a lot of other issues. But I do see some players, even during NFL games, to wear this. Now, this may come as a shock, ladies and gentlemen, but a lot of reasons why people do not wear that during gameplay, I think it's because of aesthetics. I think it's because of the way that it looks. Now, they have increased the amount of protection inside of the helmet with air cushioning and foam, again, to absorb all the impact. And that's why a lot of the NFL rules have changed, okay? This is why a lot of the rules of the NFL has essentially changed because of CTE. I remember playing football all throughout my career up until college, that we could spear people. You guys ever recall a football player? He played for the Arizona Cardinals by the name of Chuck Cecil. He was a white strong safety or linebacker, but he was famous for hitting with his helmet. And also, when I played, I used to hit with my helmet just as well as other football players, not knowing the lasting effect we think that we have on protective equipment and that we are invincible. We're running 4.7, 4.5, 4.6. My top speed was a 4.40 in my 40 and running, very fast. And so when I hit you, I'm knocking someone dead on their tail, okay? So again, after all this information come out that this is very dangerous, even though people were getting neck injuries, spinal injuries. But when CT came out, that was the groundbreaking story that changed the NFL forever. Even till this day, they're still keeping CTE hush hush because it takes away from the action. It takes away from the entertainment of high impact. That's why you can no longer use the crown of your helmet. That's why you can't use anything of the helmet. And this is why you cannot, when you're trying to sack or tackle someone, use any part of your helmet or any part of their helmet, or is a 15-yard penalty, which again is a corrective action to correct the behavior of people who are doing such thing. Because I remember, if you go and try to tackle a quarterback and the crown of your helmet or any part of your helmet hits in their helmet or under their chin, is a 15-yard penalty. They want you to only use your shoulder pads. Shoulder pads to waist, shoulder pad to shoulder pad to the top. But when you get to the head, it's totally forbidden. So again, this is some of the actions that the NFL take. And again, he's bringing more light to the attention because it has been hush-hush for a very long time. When this story blew up, especially by the way of that movie in 2015, I would say up until 2020, that's when it started to die down again. And then also, of course, all the other things that happened in between has definitely digressed this story. So believe me when I tell you, folks, that CTE may be on the rise and that we should definitely be looking now. Now, following a landmark 5-day border conflict that displaced over 300,000 people and killed at least 43 civilians, Thailand accused Cambodia of firing across the line within hours of agreeing to an immediate, unconditional ceasefire. Cambodia denies the violation. Military commanders from both sides met in Malaysia, and as other report, the truth remains fragile but holding. So again, even in this conflict here, they're stating, Thailand officials are stating that Cambodia, they actually violated the ceasefire truce. And I wish I could find you guys more information, because why would an ant antagonize an elephant? Even though you know you can be squashed, even though that you can be totally devastated. And again, what about the people? See, a lot of times when we look at different countries and the conflicts they're in, believe it or not, a lot of the conflicts that we're seeing currently is about one thing and one thing only: a land. Land. This is all about land. Thailand and Cambodia is about land. Russia and Ukraine, it's about land. Israel and Hamas, it's about land. Now, there's other issues that are revolving around this land fight, this land grab, so to speak. But the concentrated hallmark of these conflicts that we're seeing, these battles that we're seeing, is land. Because land, in some regards, equal power. So this is power by the way of land. Now, prove me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, leave it in the comment section below. But nonetheless, I like to have discussion with a lot of my viewers, my subscribers, because I think it's interesting as we comb through a lot of these very important topics and how this related to America, because America, we have always been deemed the world police. Meaning that we can police others, but you cannot police America, because we are involved in this as well. Not by the way of land. This is mostly France during the colonial times, okay, when they had influence and power and influential measures that they took to create these colonizing lines, just the way as they did in Africa, this is the way they did in Central and South America. They did it around the globe. A lot of Europeans done this. And now that they're in these conflicts, President Trump, he was very influential in garnering a ceasefire between these two countries, and I'm glad he did. He put pressure on these countries by the way of trade. So, as I say, I'm glad that he has done this, because, again, innocent people have been affected. Innocent people have been displaced, and now they're moving all over the country to get away from a lot of these war zones. So again, I hope this can continue, because I don't know how long this can essentially hold up. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this particular story. President Trump's new 3-word nickname is going very, very viral, okay? It's going very, very viral. It says that a new internet meme has given Trump the 3-word nickname, Trump always chickens out, taco. It's 4 words, but there's another 3-word meme as well. But they said Trump always chickens out, taco. lamponing his perceived flip-flops in trade policy. It quickly spreading across social media and international media, and rumor mills now call it the latest Trump caller after another market-centric name from Wall Street analysts. But there is another nickname that they're also calling Trump, and they're calling President Trump the commander-in-chief. They're stating that he cheated while he was playing golf in Scotland at one of his golf courses, which is one of the best in the world, by the way, that he got a very liberal drop from his caddy. He said Trump caught cheating at golf. Watch the second guy in the red vest toss a ball behind him. Okay. But again, this is something that I guess one of his caddies did. I don't know if he was instructed by President Trump or not, but this is petty. They just try to get Trump on anything. Again, he's a whole president. When you're playing amongst friends and colleagues, there's a level of scrutiny, and you cheat a little bit, you drink a little bit. That's just the way things are. So this is more fun for me than it is anything else, but I'll at least let you guys see this quick video. And that's pretty much it. But they calling President Trump the commander-in-chief. And so he has quite a few nicknames, commander-in-chief, commander-in-chief, and also Taco. Okay. So if you guys are hearing these names, I mean, again, he's a very prominent, influential figure. He was that way even before his two presidencies. So again, that's more fun, commander-in-chief. I mean, we can make that applicable to a lot of things, not just golf. But Taco is crazy because calling him Taco is kind of a way that you play with words, especially when you're talking about mass deportation. So President Taco is now deporting a lot of people who made fun of that. But again, it's kind of just going viral. Commander-in-chief, also Taco. Yeah, we can have quite a bit of fun with that. Now, unfortunately, this next story is heart-wrenching because we are yet again talking about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stating that there is no starvation in Gaza and no policy to starve civilians, despite admitting humanitarian aid continues. And again, Gaza health officials, by the way of the WHO updates, and firsthand witnesses report skyrocketing levels of malnutrition, especially among children under 5, with deaths confirmed from hunger and hospital wards overwhelmed. And President Trump publicly rejected Benjamin Netanyahu's claim, pointing to images of emasculating Gazans. And these are some of the figures that we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen. These are not just AI created depiction. These are real pictures of children in Gaza. And it stated here from the Associated Press, Israel said over the weekend that the military will pause operation in Gaza City for about 10 hours a day and designate secure routes for aid delivery as hunger crisis grows in Gaza. Of course, they didn't want to show the child's face here. Thank God for that. But nonetheless, this is kind of give you a more graphic depiction, not of this young man, but of what could possibly that these children are looking at. You can see every bone in their body. And I know that nobody wishes this on anyone in the world, especially children. We have all been kids. We have all been children. And thank God, and I hope that you guys never been through this, but I haven't been through anything when it comes to starvation, okay? Very explicit, but I've been hungry. I've said my story a couple of times that my mom and I, we were homeless. We lived in an alley in a cardboard box for a week. And I was hungry those days. I remember walking roughly 5 miles to my uncle's house, who also lived in DC at the time, to roughly get 2 or 3 eggs so I could eat an egg sandwich. So that is me being hungry, because after I hear stories of starvation, if you go through history of people who starve, I was just hungry because I had, plenty, fat tissue, muscle tissue to eat through. But when you look at these kids these days, they don't have anything to spare. As you can tell, zero fat, and the starvation, his body is now eating his muscle tissue just to stay alive. Your body has a survival mechanism that it first starts to eat your fat as you are hungry, and then that transform into something more severe like starvation. Your body eats your fat first, and then it starts to eat away your muscle tissue. And that's what I see in this picture here. And I'm glad that President Trump is actually stepping in, but we have to do more. The Trump administration has to do more. We have to start limiting and cutting off the aid to Israel when it comes to military equipment, military resources, and funding. We have to stop. We have to start putting all these countries that we are supporting. We need not only a larger voice, but we also need to be at the table of decision making because we are supporting you. These are not this donation. This is constant and consistent support to the Israeli nation. And in that, people are starving, innocent people are starving and dying, then something needs to change. And the only people that can change this and put pressure on the Trump administration is the American people. By the way of your congressman, by the way of your representative, by the way of your senator, just send them a letter. This is very important. This takes nothing away from what Hamas did to the Israelites during that October 7th tragedy. It has nothing to do with that. Now we're talking about innocent Palestinians who are going through, in this day and age, in 2025, into the 21st century, of starvation. I know nobody would want this for anybody, especially the most vulnerable of us all, children. I know you guys wouldn't want that. I know you guys wouldn't want that. Now, convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, serving a 20-year sentence in New York, has formally filed a petition to the U.S. Supreme Court seeking to overturn her conviction. Her attorneys argue a 2007 plea deal meant to protect Epstein's potential co-conspirators should have applied to her, even though she wasn't explicitly named. The filings comes days after meeting with DOJ officials as part of a possible cooperation agreement. The Justice Department countered it as it covers. And as we look at this, she again has been named as one of the key people that was trafficking and somewhat winning the trust of children and other people who was involved in a lot of these alleged sex crimes. So should she be granted an appeal? Should they deny it? You know, I'm almost inclined that they should grant it. And I just want to read just a little bit of the story here as they show. It said that Ghislaine Maxwell pressed ahead with an appeal to the Supreme Court on Monday, seeking to overturn her conviction on the grounds that she was unlawfully prosecuted for sex trafficking minors with Jeffrey Epstein. See, they needed fall people for this. I wonder how innocent or how guilty she is, because she may make a point here. Child sex trafficking. Okay. With Jeffrey Epstein, there's Epstein files. There's supposedly well-to-do, well-known, influential, powerful elitists that are in the Epstein files, but the Epstein files has yet to be released. I wonder who's behind the prevention of the Epstein files being released. I just don't know who's possibly behind the stoppage of the Epstein files being released, and who named or names that could effectively affect the country in a negative way are in these files. And the reason why I ask you guys this is because we are the most powerful country in the world, and our president is a known associate of Jeffrey Epstein. And as I always say, as a disclaimer, that does not mean that President Trump had any wrongdoing in his association with Jeffrey Epstein, but yet the prevention and blockade, even though the GOP and liberals subpoenaed and passed a vote to subpoena the files of Jeffrey Epstein, we still have yet to see the Jeffrey Epstein files, even though, by the way of Pam Bondi instructing President Trump and informing President Trump that your name appears multiple times in Epstein files. Again, in what regards, in what manner? Context is everything. Just a vague statement can have people on news media just shoot off at the side of their mouth and saying all sorts of disdain, ill will, untrue things. Context is everything. So again, that is why this is very important that we go about these things. So now I want to touch on very quickly CTE, because I want to take you into the shadows of a very silent killer that has been stalking athletes and soldiers and everyday people for decades. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And I want you to imagine something you're living with every day of your life, whether it be playing football, boxing, serving in the military, taking hits to the head, never thinking twice. And this reigns true for me because I'm a 20-year vet. I also played football. I also used to do Golden Glove boxing. So again, I just believe that I'm very blessed. I believe that I'm very lucky that till this day, I don't believe I have any brain injury. And I know that sometimes as you get older, certain ailments, certain conditions start to come on. And hopefully that never happens to me. I hope that I stay in the same condition where I have all my faculties, my mental faculties in order. But CTE, folks, is a real thing. And it has very, very devastating effects. I really want you guys to think about this, because if you imagine, and a lot of you guys have played football, served in the military, you did boxing, you've taken hits to the head, and you've never thought twice about it. You feel tough. And again, I felt at one point in time, I really want you guys to dive through this. Being in the military, especially the Marines, especially on a football field, I felt indestructible. I was called when I was in college as well as high school, because I told my college coaches what they used to call me in high school. I used to be called the wedge buster. So anytime during a kickoff or a punt return, there are certain formations that football teams get into to protect the runner and blocking so they could potentially get a lot of yards and or score a touchdown. And I just took it upon myself one game, and I started to do it from that one game, is run fast as I can. And at my top speed at a very crucial weight, 5'11", 185. Yeah, I'm not that tall. 185, and I ran a 4.4 at my top speed, and I would run as fast as I can. And I would see a wedge or I'll see a line of protectors, and I would just run and throw my body and go like this into it to bust open the wedge, especially when you do certain walls and punting. What they used to do is these curved walls, when the ball is kicked and the runner, they used to set up this sort of wedge that they would, so the runner can run around a protection. If it's perfectly done, it's almost a touchdown every time. But I was the one who would run through that wedge and literally run into 2 or 3 people to forge a hole inside of that wall that they're making of protection for the runner. That was me. And I used to just throw my body, my shoulders, my head into that. Then I wore a neck collar. I know the old school ones used to be the little white piece of cushion so your neck wouldn't go back and hurt your neck. I had the horseshoe collar. It's like a little black thing that comes, you wear it under your shoulder pads. But again, that was me. So I can relate to this very closely, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. But again, you feel indestructible. But deep down inside your skull, something is happening that you can't see, that you can't feel until it's too late. Because CTE is not just a concussion, it's a degenerative brain disease that eats away at who you are. It starts with repeated head trauma. Each impact shakes your brain like a snow globe. Over time, proteins called tau build up, literally. They're called TAU, and they build up, literally strangling your brain cells. Your frontal lobe, responsible for decision making, impulse control, starts to die. Your mood swings violently. Depression takes root, and paranoia creeps in sometimes, and violence explodes. And I don't want anyone to take away from Shane Tamar's story just because he didn't play in the NFL. Just because he didn't play in the NFL does not mean he didn't suffer from CTE. Now, one question would be, was he diagnosed with CTE medically, or did he just believe he had CTE and he really didn't, but he had other mental issues? Okay, because again, CTE doesn't mean that you're insane, you're outside of your mind. You can be very conscious, but there's a constant pain. And what I read that describes what people go through, and it becomes very unbearable. So when we look at these things, we actually don't know what this young man has been through. And I'm not giving any excuse from his action of taking innocent life. But statistically speaking, and again, I hate to be racial, but on this particular point, statistically speaking, Black men don't conduct mass shootings, especially in the realm and region of innocent environments and innocent people. If there's any mass shooting that usually happen with Black men, Black people all together, is usually in the neighborhoods in which they live. And more times than not, that's usually related to some sort of gang violence or wrongdoings between certain groups, but never just going into a random office building and just shooting up the place. That's just not part of our MO. That's not part of something that we do. It's not really in us like that. So I'm more inclined to believe that there's something that was really wrong with him. And until I get the medical reports with a note saying that he was diagnosed with CTE, like he stated, he gave them permission to go in and check this, check my brain activity, check to see if I had anything going on, because he believes he had CTE. So again, we really wouldn't know until we come out with some sort of medical evidence to state otherwise. Now, the Midtown shooting story of Shane Tamar, he claimed again that he had CTE. He also left a note citing that in NFL, this isn't the first time we've seen tragedy linked to the disease. And NFL legends like Junior Seau and Aaron Hernandez also suffered their lives spiraling out of control before ending in death. So again, we've had all these examples of different people who suffer from CTE. Now, granted, when it comes to CTE, this is mostly going to affect people who play in sports, boxing, football, all of these contact sports. And hopefully the NFL, the boxing leagues, MMA, all these contact sports that people getting hit in the head, that they take precautions in some regards. But here's the part that makes my blood boil you. CTE might still be hidden from us if it weren't for one man, Dr. Bennett Amalu. Because as I stated back in 2002, that Dr. Bennett Amalu, he performed an autopsy of former Pittsburgh Steeler Mike Webster, a football hero who had become homeless, addicted, mentally broken. And this is the gentleman that I'm speaking about here, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Bennett Amalu, and he received the AMA award. They gave this gentleman here a standing ovation because of his findings. Now, the NFL didn't like this. But nonetheless, as he was performing the autopsy again on Mike Webster, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Mike Webster was a football hero who had become homeless, addicted, and mentally broken. And what Amalu found was shocking. It shocked him, which a brain ravaged by tau proteins and looking more like that of a dementia patient than a 50-year-old man. It's like usually dementia doesn't, I guess statistics say that dementia really doesn't come on to around your mid-60s, 65, 70. But he was at the age of 50 and it looked like he had dementia. So when Dr. Amalu tried to publish his findings, again, when he tried to publish his findings, the NFL unleashed hell on him, and their doctors mocked him, discredited him, tried to bury the truth because billions of dollars were at stake. And when we're talking about billions of dollars, folks, who do you think those billions of dollars come from? You and I, the consumers of entertainment and football. I love football, love the game, play the game. Instilled a lot of discipline in me and a lot of other things, teamwork, unity, all these other, this hallmarks, all these other characteristics and attributes that you just gain from being part of team sports. But this is something that has been hidden for quite some time. But they tried to bury this at the time of his publishing because of billions of dollars. They called his research flawed, said that CTE didn't exist. Imagine being a scientist trying to save lives, only to be silenced because it threatened a multi-billion-dollar empire. But Dr. Amalu fought back. He kept publishing. Others joined in, researchers like Dr. Ann McKee, who later examined hundreds of former players' brain, proving that CTE is a real thing and it's widespread. It wasn't until lawsuits mounted and players kept dying that the NFL finally admitted the truth. They paid out billions. They paid out billions in settlements. But to this day, they still avoid saying CTE like it's a forbidden word. They don't want us to pay attention. Yeah, because we love football. We love the hard-hitting action. And let me tell you, as a football player, ladies and gentlemen, so do I. I used to love hitting people hard, but not at the expense of hurting them. You know, they say that the hardest hits don't make sounds. That's true. I've been hit very hard. And you guys ever remember that old school movie, if you guys are old enough, called The Program, where the guy get hit and snot comes out of his nose? That actually happened to me. And no one really, it took my air away because I think it hit me kind of like in my diaphragm, in my stomach area, but snot came out my nose and I thought I was almost dying because the wind was knocked out of me, so to speak. And just like any other football player, are you hurt or you injured? If you're injured, you can't play. If you hurt, you carry on, because everybody is hurt playing. Believe it or not, professional sports, collegiate sports, high school sports, you play hurt damn near all the time. Ice baths and being wrapped and massages, none of that really helps. You really heal during the off season. They tell you take about a month off where you're probably just working out or something, but you're not doing any hitting hard activity. You're not really doing anything strenuous because the body needs to recover and rebuild. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that CTE is a real thing. And I just thank God that I haven't come under any of this. Because the impact of his work is staggering. Because people with CTE, they lose themselves. Because I've seen stories of men who loved their families one day and couldn't even remember the kids the next. I just want you guys to put that into perspective. Because it has devastating effects on the brain. It really does. Your impulse control vanishes, leading to reckless decision, self-destruction, even violence. Suicide rates among players skyrocketed. Depression, anxiety, paranoia, they're all symptoms of a brain literally breaking down from the inside out. But here's the scariest part. There is no cure. Once the damage is done, it's permanent. And you can't diagnose CTE in the living. Not yet, at least. It's only found after death, meaning there are countless people walking around right now, suffering in silence and their minds slowly unraveling. Wow. Is that the reason why this young man, Shane, is this the reason why he has given scientists, researchers, and doctors permission to examine his brain after his death? Is this the reason why? Because the only way that you can detect CTE is after someone is already passed away. It becomes real for me because, again, as I stated before, that this mostly affects football players, boxers, and military personnel. Again, other contact sports, it happens, but not as severe as the top three I just named, according to statistics. So when I tell you guys this is no joke. And this is all at the expense of entertainment. This isn't just a football issue. It's boxing, it's hockey, wrestling, soccer, military veterans from blast injuries. I was actually near a blast that rattled me. So I understand. I want a couple of blasts. But anyone who experiences repeated brain trauma is at risk. I'm telling you this because we can't ignore it. That's why this story is very important. We can't ignore it. We can't ignore it anymore. Lives are at stake. Families are being destroyed. And we can't let billion-dollar corporations silence science and the truth. We can't allow it to happen. We owe it to every player, every veteran, every kid strapping on a helmet to face this head on. And as I stated before, Dr. Amalu, don't let denial kill you. It's time we wake up and confront this killer hiding in plain sight. I wish all contact sports, those people who play, and all military veterans the best, and that we really unify around this to a degree where we are increasing the safety measures around contact sports as well as military equipment when it comes to the Kevlar, comes to your military protective equipment, because it can get better. We have the technology. Throw it into an AI large language model, but there are solutions out there. The only question is, are they willing to pay for it? And at the cost of human lives and your loved ones and my loved ones, they absolutely should.